Today I'm looking at 15 movies that failed hard at the box office, but probably shouldn't have. These aren't disasters like Morbius, and they're not masterpieces like Blade Runner. These are movies that were actually solid, sometimes very good, and still lost tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. One of them killed an entire studio, but I actually think they deserve a remake. So Batman in 1989 made an absolute fortune. $500 million worldwide, which back then was insane. And suddenly, studios were looking around for other vigilante heroes they could turn into the next Batman. Universal found one in The Shadow. The Shadow was this crime-fighting character from the 1930s and 40s. Comic strips, radio shows, movie serials. Even Orson Welles voiced him at one point. The guy was huge back in the day, and Batman was actually inspired by The Shadow. So Universal figured they'd bring the original back and cash in. They got Alec Baldwin for the lead, gave it a $40 million budget, and released it in the summer of 1994. It's this noir superhero thing, kinda pulpy, not terrible, but not special either. Opened at number 2 with $11 million. Problem is, number 1 that weekend was The Lion King in its third week, making $34 million. Obviously, The Shadow couldn't compete. It ended with $32 million total. Lost money. And the reason was pretty obvious. The Shadow hadn't been relevant since World War II. That's 50 years of nobody caring about this character. Marketing tried to make audiences interested in this retro pulp hero, but it just didn't land. People in the 90s had no connection to him. But what's interesting to me here is that The Shadow is basically about a wealthy guy with a dark past who fights crime while wrestling with his own capacity for evil. That's a morally complex character, and people today actually respond to that kind of cynicism. You could do it as an HBO series, cast someone like John Hamm, lean into the darkness and moral ambiguity. I think that could work now in a way it didn't in the 90s. Michael Keaton's one of those actors everyone loves no matter how many bombs he's been in, and he's been in quite a few. One of them was Multiplicity in 1996, directed by Harold Ramis. Keaton plays this guy who's completely overwhelmed. Husband, father, job, everything pulling him in different directions. So he does the logical thing and clones himself. Multiple versions of him to handle all the responsibilities. Except the clones start developing their own personalities and wants, and the whole thing spirals. The movie made $20 million on a $45 million budget. Critics hated it, said the humor fell flat and there was too much crude sexual stuff. The whole thing only works because Keaton's got so much charisma he could hold together a pretty thin sitcom premise. But that premise is actually really relevant now. A guy being pulled in so many directions he takes drastic measures to cope. That's more relatable today than it was in the 90s. Everyone's overwhelmed, everyone's trying to be 5 people at once. You could remake this, but instead of a straight comedy, make it darker. Kind of like Severance on Apple TV, where it's this dystopian satire about compartmentalizing your life. The original had the right idea, it just played it too safe and goofy. Tom Wolfe wrote a novel in 1987 called The Bonfire of the Vanities. It's this brutal satire of 1980s New York. Wall Street culture, corruption, tabloid journalism, all of it. The book was a massive bestseller, and it's genuinely great at skewering that whole era of yuppie excess. People called it unfilmable. But if Lord of the Rings and Dune taught us anything, no book is actually unfilmable. You just need the right people making it. And this 90s version had all the wrong people in it. Brian De Palma directed, and they cast Tom Hanks as a ruthless Wall Street guy and Bruce Willis as a sleazy British tabloid writer. And the whole thing just didn't work at all. The movie made $15 million on a $47 million budget. It's considered one of the biggest box office bombs of the 90s. But the source material is still sitting there, and it's still relevant. Maybe even more relevant now than it was in 1990. You just need to approach it like The Wolf of Wall Street or American Hustle, something dark and funny. Cast someone like DiCaprio as McCoy, the Wall Street trader at the center of it all, and build around that. The novel is long, but Marvel movies run 2.5 hours now, so who cares about length anymore? After Batman came out in 1989, Hollywood was trying to figure out which superheroes to make movies about. Took them 11 years to do X-Men, 13 for Spider-Man, 28 for Wonder Woman, and yet for some reason they rushed a movie about a guy in a purple suit fighting crime in the jungle. It cost $45 million, made just 17. Funny thing is, The Phantom was actually pretty fun. It had this great adventure movie feel to it, like the kind of thing you'd watch on a Saturday afternoon as a kid. David Newman did the music, and it was genuinely good. But it came out summer of 1996, and people just weren't interested in a Depression-era pulp hero. Wrong time, wrong audience. Now, though, I think it could work. Media is so fragmented these days, there's room for all kinds of superhero stuff. You could make it dark and violent, really lean into all that comic book brutality, or flip it completely and do a family CGI thing like that Ultraman movie on Netflix. Someone should take another crack at it, but with a budget that actually makes sense this time. This one's special because it didn't just bomb, it killed the entire production company. The studio went out of business, that's how bad it was. $98 million to make. That's almost $200 million in today's money. Know how much it made back? $10 million. Cutthroat Island is why pirates were dead in Hollywood for years. Everyone pointed to it and said, see, nobody wants pirate movies. It took Johnny Depp and Pirates of the Caribbean to bring the genre back from the grave. This one movie sank an entire genre by itself. Which sucks because it was actually a decent pirate adventure. Geena Davis was great in it. The action worked. Problem was, the budget spiraled completely out of control during shooting, and by the time they finished, there was barely any money left for marketing. Most people didn't even know it existed. You could remake this tomorrow with a normal budget like $30–40 million, and it would probably do fine. Geena Davis had two big bombs back-to-back, this and The Long Kiss Goodnight, and it basically ended her career as an A-list star. Her husband Rennie Harlin was directing both of them, ended his career too. Both movies deserve better than they got. Say that title 5 times fast. Actually, just say it once. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. You need a remake, if only to give it a name people can actually remember. Buckaroo Banzai is a physicist, test pilot, neurosurgeon, and rock musician. Just every cool profession at once. Peter Weller plays him, which automatically makes him cooler because he's one step away from RoboCop. The plot involves aliens from Planet 10 bringing their war to Earth, and Banzai has to stop them. Cast alone is insane. There's Christopher Lloyd, Clancy Brown, Jeff Goldblum, John Lithgow, basically every character actor you love in one movie. And yet it bombed hard. $17 million budget, made just 6. Maybe people in the 80s couldn't handle how weird it was. Too many ideas happening at once. Whatever the reason, they rejected it completely. It's a cult classic now, but never broke through to mainstream, which means there's an opening. Get Ryan Gosling or Christian Bale, keep the weird sci-fi stuff, but tighten up the story so it's not quite so all over the place, and you might have something. Michael Crichton owned the 90s. At one point, he became the first and only person to have the #1 movie, TV show, and novel all at the same time. Then he did it again. The guy couldn't miss. Until he did. The 13th Warrior came out in 1999 and absolutely tanked. Made $61 million on a budget of $125 million. For context, Jurassic Park cost about half that 6 years earlier, and that was a Steven Spielberg movie with dinosaurs. This was Vikings fighting cannibals. The whole thing was based on Crichton's novel Eaters of the Dead from 1976, 23 years old by the time the movie came out. And somewhere along the way, they changed the title from something that sounds genuinely cool to The 13th Warrior, which tells you absolutely nothing and makes people think it's a martial arts movie. But the actual story is great. It's Vikings versus cannibal monsters. That premise would absolutely kill today. Give it to someone like Robert Eggers, make it an HBO series or a big prestige movie, use the original title, and you've got something. Disney almost shut down their animation department because of this movie. The Black Cauldron came out in 1985, cost $44 million to make, earned $21, and nearly ended Disney animation for good. So why would anyone want to remake something that almost killed a studio? Because the movie's actually solid. The story follows this pig herder who dreams about being a hero. And then he actually gets called to adventure when he has to stop an evil king from raising an army of the undead. It's basically Joseph Campbell's hero's journey beat for beat, which means the structure works. The problem was it was way too dark for little kids in 1985. Disney marketed it to children, and children did not want to watch a movie about necromancy and undead armies. Parents definitely didn't want their kids watching it. But what if you remake it today as a live-action film for young adults? Look, I'm generally not into Disney remaking their animated classics. It's cynical and cash-grabby, and Snow White was the absolute worst movie of 2025. But if they're going to do it anyway, better they remake something that flopped than keep ruining movies people already love. Dennis Quaid plays a spaceship pilot who crashes on a planet where everything's trying to kill him. Louis Gossett Jr. plays a reptilian alien from a race called the Dracs. Problem is, humans and Dracs are at war with each other. So they're enemies. They're both stranded, and they have to work together to survive. It's the setup for 1,000 Star Trek episodes, but director Wolfgang Peterson made it feel different. The chemistry between Quaid and Gossett Jr. carried the whole thing, and the world building was strong enough that you actually believed in what was happening. But the movie opened at number 9 during a holiday weekend with $1.5 million. It closed with $12 million total against a $40 million budget. A remake was announced at some point, so hopefully it actually happens. The story deserves another shot with a studio that knows how to market it. Early 90s, Arnold Schwarzenegger was untouchable. Terminator 2 made him the biggest action star on the planet, and True Lies kept him there, both directed by James Cameron. But right between those two hits, Arnold had his first real box office bomb. Last Action Hero cost $85 million in 1993. That's nearly $200 million today. The whole pitch was just, it's Arnold being Arnold. Actually, it was Arnold playing a guy being played by Arnold. The kid in the movie gets sucked into an action film and has to explain to Arnold's character that he's in a movie. Problem was, it opened 1 week after Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park cost less money and was demolishing every record that summer. Nothing survived that. Moreover, back in 1993, people weren't ready for a meta movie. They just wanted Arnold to shoot bad guys and say one-liners, not tell them they were watching a movie. But now we're swimming in meta stuff. Deadpool does it. The Lego movie built an entire franchise on it. People would absolutely get what Last Action Hero was doing if it came out today. It made $137 million and flopped at the box office. But watching it now, the idea actually works. It was just way ahead of its time. Before McConaughey won his Oscar, he was doing romantic comedies, and then he tried to become an action star. He picked Dirk Pitt from Clive Cussler's books, this globe-trotting adventurer character with a whole series of novels behind him. Built-in audience, adventure stories, should have been a slam dunk. They spent $160 million making Sahara. It made $119. Two things killed it. First, if you'd never heard of Dirk Pitt, the movie gave you no reason to care. The marketing didn't work, but the people who loved the books hated the casting. McConaughey felt wrong for the character. So new people stayed home because they didn't know what this was, and the fans who should have shown up were mad before it even came out. That's how you lose $160 million. But Uncharted with Tom Holland made $400 million a couple years ago doing the exact same thing. And Reacher on Amazon proved that if you cast these book characters right, people will watch. Dirk Pitt could work. The books are still popular. Adventure movies still make money when they're done right. Someone just has to not screw up the lead this time. Dennis Quaid plays this medieval knight who kills dragons for money. He's so good at it there's only one dragon left, and that dragon is voiced by Sean Connery. So they team up and run this scam where they go village to village, fake a big dragon fight, get paid, and move on to the next town. Then they have to stop this evil king who Quaid used to work for. It's actually a pretty solid fantasy story. But back in the 90s, dragon movies just died. Dragon Slayer flopped in 1981. Reign of Fire with Bale flopped in 2002. Nobody cared about dragons, so they basically wasted that $57 million budget and got nothing for it. Then Game of Thrones happened, and suddenly everyone's obsessed with dragons again. House of the Dragon is huge. The audience is completely different now. Dragonheart's got a good hook. A knight and the last dragon working together, running cons, both kind of shady characters. That's interesting. With modern effects and an audience that actually likes dragons, this could work if someone took it seriously. After Tarzan came out, Disney was in this weird spot where they were still making traditional 2D animated movies while everyone else was moving to 3D CGI like Pixar. But Disney thought they still had the magic touch because of how great things were back in the 90s with The Lion King and all that. What they forgot was that those movies were mostly based on fairy tales everyone already knew. So when Disney started taking risks on weirder stuff like Treasure Planet, people didn't show up the same way. Atlantis came out in 2001. The story follows a young cartographer, voiced by Michael J. Fox, who gets hired by an eccentric billionaire to join a crew heading to the mythical Lost City. The movie made $186 million on a $120 million budget, which sounds okay until you remember Disney was used to their animated films making $500 million or more. By Disney standards at the time, this was a disappointment. But Atlantis has the bones of something that could work really well as a live-action remake. Like Avatar-style visuals, show us the beauty of this underwater world that's been hidden for thousands of years. The story's already there, the world building is solid, it just came out at the wrong time in the wrong format. Obviously, it's not going to make Avatar money, but a proper remake with modern effects could actually find the audience. Before Pirates of the Caribbean, Johnny Depp was basically box office poison. A lot of his pre-Pirates movies flopped hard, and The Astronaut's Wife was one of them. Charlize Theron plays the wife of an astronaut, played by Depp, who notices he's acting weird after coming back from space. He had some kind of close call up there, nearly died, and now something's off about him. It's basically Rosemary's Baby, but instead of Satan, it's an evil alien. The movie made $10 million on a $33 million budget. It had the terrible luck of opening right after The Sixth Sense came out, which completely dominated the box office. But movies like The Invisible Man or this year's Weapons prove there's still a huge audience for horror stories. The Astronaut's Wife, with better timing and a tighter script, could actually work. The premise is solid, it just needed a better execution. Toni Morrison's Beloved is one of the great American novels. Oprah Winfrey in the 90s was the most famous person on television. You'd think putting those two things together would create a massive hit, but that's not what happened in 1998. Oprah plays a former slave who's now a mother of 3, and her home is haunted by a spirit. Danny Glover plays a friend trying to help get rid of the ghost, but then this mysterious woman named Beloved shows up and everything gets even more complicated. The movie made $22 million on a $53 million budget. Maybe Oprah's fans were more interested in her talking about books on TV than actually starring in adaptations of them. Or maybe the book was just too beloved and people didn't want to see it turned into a movie. There's this saying that a masterpiece has already found its medium, so maybe adapting a book as important as Beloved is asking for trouble. But I think if you made it today with a fresh approach, modern audiences might actually connect with it.